Welcome to Board Game Binge, the place where we bring you bite-sized, bingeable board game content across the industry. I'm your host, James Staley, and in this episode, we're chatting with Sam Barmettler from Around the Stump Games. Sam's latest creation, Button Kingdoms, the cuddliest game of plushie conquest, is recently funded on Kickstarter. Sam, welcome to the binge. How you doing, my friend?
Hey James, thank you. Excited to be here. Feeling great. Been wow, a crazy month with getting this Kickstarter off the ground.
That and Gen Con as well, right? Like, my gosh, man, are you a sucker for punishment? What the
Uh,
heck?
yeah, no, probably not the best course of action when you're a solo board game publisher, but we made it through. We made it through. Only one catastrophized injury came about from Gen Con while being tired from from the Kickstarter. So we are generally very good.
Oh my God. Now, did you drive there? Did you get fly? Like, whereabouts are you located in relation to Gen Con?
No, we fly. I am based south of Tucson, Arizona.
Oh, wow.
So
Okay.
I think it's like 36 hours if I was to try to drive. It's a little bit much. And yeah,
Not impossible, but a little
yeah,
much, eh?
yeah, yeah.
Now, do you send like for those out there looking to exhibit at Gen Con? I often get asked questions by people on just the
Mhm.
whole mechanisms around that. Did you work with a distributor to get your inventory there ahead of time, or how did you kind of coordinate all that?
Um, Not a distributor. I have started working with, oh man, I've done so many different things on getting product to Gen Con in the past. Before I used to work with an organization that's since gone out of business, and I was vending in their booth.
Okay.
But now I'm vending on my own, and just this past year, I forget the name of them, some guy named Jeremy that I met at Gamma. He working with a shipping company
Mm.
and is able to ship pallets for us. So we drop off at a warehouse and then we go and rent a U-Haul when we're up there and pick up at a warehouse and bring it in. And it costs way, way less than using a distributor. So,
How do they hit
um,
you with the like, or do they hit you with like unloading charges and things? Like, I know when I did
nope.
Essen, for instance, that you just get slammed with like receiving charges and things like that at the actual event center itself. There are no problems.
Well, no, that's the thing. I'm not actually shipping to the event center. When I do that, I just ship it to somewhere else in Indiana, and then I pick up all my goods there at the warehouse that I pick it up in Indiana, and then I bring it in like I drove in.
So you're
So
walking it in. Wow. Okay.
yeah, I did that one time with it was the first Origins game fair that I did,
Yeah.
and I was like, wow, shipping in $1,000 worth of product for $3,000 is not a way to make a profitable convention.
Yeah, it makes no
So
sense.
yeah, I never did that again.
Oh wow. So it was a good convention for you then. So you got and you had like a booth. Do you have people help you? Do you like how do you I know you're a solo guy, but like how do you kind of arrange all that?
Yeah, we got friends who come out and help. And I say I'm a solo guy. I'm tied in with my sister company, Sentient Games.
Hmm.
Ty McDonald runs that. We've been best friends since way before doing this, doing the board game thing. And actually, our first foray into board game design, or at least his real first foray into board game design, was us coming up with like a spin-off of Stratego because we had spent like 3 days playing Stratego straight when we were teenagers. So
That's awesome. So
yeah.
I had read that somewhere that you were doing like like many of us actually just doing homebrew versions of other games, right? And creating your own rules as you go and your own expansion. Is that how you kind of started off?
Yeah, that was a big part of how I started off.
Yeah.
I always just wanted to tweak the knobs on what made a game work. So that was always part of it. I was just always wanting to do the little home rules and things like that. But that's not where I really felt the strong pull to
Hmm.
towards board game design. It was actually the first thing that I would say I created that was actually like, oh man, this was a game, was based off of a TV series that they made a video game series for. And also like that TV series was back in like the early entry days of the TCGs, Pokemon, and Yu-Gi-Oh were all the
Hmm.
rage as cartoons, and Mega Man ended up doing one called the Mega Man NT Warrior series, and I got
Interesting.
hooked on that cartoon, but my family had gone through a major financial disaster, so they couldn't afford any games or toys or anything like that. So I just took out a notebook and started writing up cards and things, and I made the game for me and my younger brothers to play. And then I completely forgot about it until like 12, 15 years later. However, yeah, it was about 15 years later when I really started trying to get into the industry.
Yeah, that's crazy. And did you ever take like a chance at trying to get the license for that from Capcom, or did you ever reskin it and turn it into something else? Or
I know I have no idea where or what the rules of that were because it was torn up pieces of paper like that
Hmm.
is disappeared.
It's in the abyss.
I mean, yeah, I was a freshman in high school. I mean, I would love to do something with that because oh yeah, I would love to at some point. It pops up into my mind every once in a while, like
Yeah.
how could I make things work to do something with that series? Because there have been Mega Man games now, but I don't think there's been anything that spun off of that particular part of
Mm.
the Mega Man ethos, at least on the tabletop yet.
I think the
Uh,
key is too is getting a Mega Man game that really plays well in an analog format, right? Like I know
mhm.
there's been some iterations, but to really get something where it's just like people are like, "Oh my God," like they just that it pulls them in kind of like the video game franchise.
Mhm.
I think that's kind of the sweet spot that everyone's chasing, right? But
Yeah.
wow. So then the
And I
first
think
game
the
you,
hard part about that is just because everybody's going off the platform Mega
yeah.
Man. But the NT Warrior series, that was like a dueling trading card game already. So
Mm,
I think it's got potential.
yeah. And then so what was the first game that you launched and when was that?
hmm Yeah, so that was Outrun the Bear. It's a survival racing game that I launched in October of 2022.
Mm.
I was really surprised that that ended up being my first game, but it actually kind of happened just because of the pandemic.
Okay, so it's a pandemic. Did you have a number of designs and this is the one you kind of chose to go forward with, or how did you approach that?
Um, So what happened was actually it started like 4 years before that. I had an idea for a game based on the old Final Fantasy X or 10 video game.
Hmm.
That was like one of the big epic adventure games that are pretty cool, and like I own like five of them, and I never play them. But I was working on that, and what had happened was I finally reached a point in my life where I could afford the Adobe suite, and I had taken graphic design in high school, but like Adobe is crazy expensive.
Hmm.
And so I knew how to use it, and I had this idea for a game, and I'd always kind of wanted to make a game, but I was always thinking like video games, but I don't know how to program like at all.
Mm.
So like that was always not approachable for me. And then I pitched it to my buddy Ty, who I was talking about, Sentient Games, and he was like, "Dude, you should make that. That sounds really fun." So this is a little before the pandemic, so like free time, just kind of dabbling in that. And then the pandemic hits, and well, now we've got like crazy amounts of free time. So I really started going into it. But while I was doing that, I was listening to Gabe Barrett's Board Game Design Lab
Yep.
podcast. And one of the episodes, he was interviewing Kathleen Mercury, who was important for Outrun the Bear because she kind of saved that game at one point.
How so?
It was just there was something wrong there. There was something wrong with the feel of the game.
Hmm.
So I decided to reach out to her and because she said, "Hey, if you're making a racing game, feel free to reach out to me." And I was like, I can't figure out why this game is stuck right here. And it's always kill your darlings. Like that's always going to be the answer when your game is just not working. You've
Yeah.
got something you're overly attached to. But she hopped on, and I couldn't identify what the darlings were. And when she hopped on and did one playtest, she's like, "All right, I understand why you like this series of cards that you have here in the game, but they do not actively drive towards the solution or the goal of the game.
Hmm.
So here's what I want you to do. I want you to just go through your entire list of cards, and anything that doesn't do one of two things, which are the only two things that that game is doing to drive forward, remove them. So if the card did not either add cards to your hand, uh, which essentially are the resources for the game, or if it did not actively move you, it needed to be removed and
Hmm.
cut it down to just that core. And then once it was at that core, I could rebuild up and add some more interesting interactions. But once I did that, the game just flowed.
Yeah.
So yeah, that was really big.
I think
Um,
that's a trap that a lot of people make in game design, isn't it? Where they throw everything but the kitchen sink in there. And this whole philosophy is more is more.
mhm,
And it often comes at just the flow of the game, the expense of how the game flows, right?
yeah.
And you kind of get bogged down. And I find this myself when I'm working on games. I'll start just pulling things out and to
Mhm,
try to get down to what is the core essence of this game? What's the most basic elements of that? And if you can get to that and make that actually work, then kind of building out from there is much easier, like you're saying, versus trying to like optimize all these different parts. And you really don't know, well, what is it that's causing the issue? Because you have so many things
mhm,
happening, right?
yeah.
And it's this kind of whole iterative design of, change one thing at a time and see
Mhm.
how it impacts things, right?
Yep. Yeah, I've kind of really, I mean, board game design, it's an art.
Hmm.
But you got like three basic types of art, right? You've got painters. They go blank canvas and slowly fill it up. Then you've got like sculptors who have the giant block. They have all the materials there, and they're just carving everything out until they eventually get down to what's good. And then you got someone who's more like a potter, who they you got some material and you take some out and then you throw back in and you take it out and throw it back in, take it back out and throw it back in. And I think that's kind of where my design process has kind of fallen into, is a little bit more like that potter,
Hmm.
where yeah, the game's going to ebb and flow in and out of what material should be there and whatnot.
What were some of the learnings that you took from launching that game that then helped you in this newest iteration of Button Kingdom? Like what was it that you kind of walked away with saying, okay, I got to make sure I carry this forward?
Ooh, man, that's a tough question to answer. Outrun the Bear, for being my first title, everything kind of went so smoothly in its development that I feel like I actually learned a lot more with Button Kingdoms than
Really?
I did with that one. Yeah,
Wow.
well, you learn more from failure than you do with success, and Button
100%.
Kingdoms had a canceled campaign, so
Yeah.
at one point. Um, I think really what it helped to do is just teach me that it is possible.
Mm.
Um, but if it's going to be possible, starting smaller is better.
Yeah.
It's safer and it's easier. I think that that's been one of my big lessons that I've learned, especially over the past couple of years, transitioning between the two.
Yeah, I found that like when I first started, and again, this is now several years back, I started with little games along the way,
Mhm.
just trying to build up the learning base till I got to something where I felt comfortable enough to say, okay, now I can do a larger game, and I'm going to execute this one fairly well. But I've talked to a lot of people that have done the opposite. They start off with a big game, and
Mhm.
as you said, that's like a trial by fire, right? There's so many
Mhm.
learnings there, and so many things that can go wrong, and the scale of those mistakes and the costs associated with that are, you know, exponentially higher when you have a larger game than a tiny little box game, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's definitely true.
Wow.
Uh,
Oh, what led to then Button Kingdom? Like, how did you start? Like, where'd the idea for this game come from?
so it came because I wanted to make a game that was very much for me. in a way. So
Yeah.
so Outrun the Bear was I pitched the idea to my dad after that podcast, and his eyes lit up, and he just doesn't play games. Like
Hmm.
Yahtzee is his game. Um, so once I got through with that, I'm like, all right, well, I want to make something that's really like my speed, my energy. And I was thinking about games that I really enjoyed, and one of the favorite games that I've been playing at the time had been the original Dune board game.
Mm.
And there was something that I really liked about it, specifically with House Atreides, that faction in that game, because their easiest way to make resources or to earn income, and it's a closed income loop in that game, if you haven't played it before, but they are able to use non-tangible items, basically information that they have in order to make money. They're the
Hmm.
only ones who are allowed to know what cards are for auction or are allowed to see what cards are for auction. Everybody else has to auction on them blind. So because of that, they're able to sell off that information. And I thought that was really interesting. I loved how kind of that dynamic allowed you to think a little bit more outside the box in value. And then at the same time, I was doing I had a question, which was why, if so many people hate Catan, does Catan do so well? So I started watching the some professional Catan players
Yeah.
until I could understand all of the magic that is in Catan and why it really is a great game. We might You might hate it for the luck sometimes, but really, if you're hating it for the luck or if you're hating it for the king making, you're either one, not fully getting the game, if you're hating it for the luck, or two, you're just playing with the wrong people. You're not playing with people who are trying to win the game.
Mm.
Um, but if you look at that tournament setting, oh man, that game is solid. Um, so in doing that, I started to understand myself a little bit better as a gamer. And what I realized was when it comes to the games that I have at the table, I want to have a high level of interaction with the other players. Because whenever you have a high level of interaction with the other players, that's going to be what generates memories about the game that you played at the table.
Mm.
Um, and we've got a trend in the industry of going for the cozy puzzle game. And cozy puzzles, they're solid. They are engaging while you're at the table. You enjoyed that evening, but then you walk away, and what did that evening mean to you? Really, not that much because of the game. You'll never remember that perfect engine that you built, or at least you won't 2 weeks after that point.
Sure.
But what you will remember is the time that your best friend formed an alliance with you and then quickly stabbed you in the back. You will remember that for years. You will love them and hate them over it. And I realized that that's what I crave at game night is that type of interaction between the players. And when I put that together and then asked myself, well, what's my favorite mechanism? Which is deck building. I realized that doesn't really show up in deck building games,
Mm.
especially for the deck building aspect. And they're all kind of multiplayer solitaire, with the exception of like the hate drafting that comes up, which honestly I don't think is interesting player interaction because that's just like, oh, you're just preventing someone from being able to do the best thing possible. It doesn't really have much of emotional feel
Yeah.
beyond the moment. So I just wanted to create a deck builder that gave me the feelings that I desire from game night.
And
And
how'd you come up with
that's
the theme? Because the theme feels kind of
oh man.
safe and
Oh,
unassuming, right? And then you've got this
I
vicious
wish
competition.
I wish I had the example here in my room. But I'll have to tell you about it. Which I mean, you and me can see each other, but most everyone can't see us.
Yeah.
So yeah, we've got the theme of neighborhood kids who've built up a make-believe fantasy playground world using the resources at their disposal in order to facilitate a mock battle for playground superiority using their plushies and their pets as the units of their armies. Um, Reaching that theme, so at first the game had a generic fantasy theme. which I didn't want. One, because generic fantasy just it's fun, or it can be fun, but it also can kind of be like whatever. You can
Hmm.
kind of just not notice it. But two, Outrun the Bear won a People's Choice for Best Family Game at UKGE 2023.
Hmm.
So I realized, well, now I'm kind of in the family game space. So I want to make my next game kind of lean in more family. So I should have a theme that's appropriate for that. And I just kind of had to stumble my way around through it. And one of the things that kept on making it hard for me to come up with a theme is culling from your deck of cards is important in a deck builder. And
Hmm.
I couldn't really come up with a theme where I was culling from a deck of cards the way that I had been with the generic fantasy theme, because in the generic fantasy theme, it was like, oh, these big dragons and mythical beasts, like you would sacrifice your units to them. Like they would just eat one of your soldiers, and that was part of like them getting stronger. um so, but then I took notice of how my wife and I's border collie completely destroys and demolishes any plush toy. And I'm like, well, I could probably do something fun with that. So that's how I ended up going with the stuffed animals and pets as the beasts, the cull cards. And then I just thought back to my childhood and like the the way me and my siblings would make up battles and things with Legos or toys or other things like that. Um, I mean, I remember one toy my parents probably shouldn't have bought me, which was a scorpion that was about a stuffed scorpion that was
Hmm.
about a foot and a half long. That when I swung that by the tail, I could lift my brother off the ground. So yeah, no, that
Yeah.
yeah.
So, can you explain? So, for people that won't have the visuals, we'll do some
Mhm.
overlays for those watching on the replay. But for those listening, can you explain kind of how to play this game? Like what this game is about? How do you play it? Like, what's a typical round look like?
Yeah, definitely. So it's all simultaneous play from beginning to end. So you don't have a traditional turn. You have rounds broken up into phases. The first thing that happens is every player will draw 5 cards from their hand. Now, when you're looking at those 5 cards, you'll see that at the bottom of them, they each have 2 abilities. One on the left is a day side ability, and one on the right is a night side ability. Those are 2 other phases that we'll get into. The which the day side ability is actually our next phase. So during the day phase, you can play out any number of the cards that you have in your hand, 0 to how many ever you have. You
Hmm.
start by drawing 5, but there might be reasons why you might have more. And you'll play them out face down in front of you. This allows for the actual simultaneous action selection without something that can happen in simultaneous games where you have one player watching all the other players to calibrate what they're doing
Yeah.
off of that, and then you end up in like this deadlock when 2 people want to win. So yeah, you play them down, or you play them face down, then you flip them all over and you resolve them. Now, why would you not just play all of your cards during the day phase? Well, that's because you only draw once for both day and night phase. So you got this trade-off, this multi-use cards. So during the day phase, you might have some cards that gain you buttons or currency. They might build up defenses for your castle that you have there. They might do some sort of engine optimization, things like that. Now you move after every player's flipped their cards over and resolve them, then all the players discard them, and you move into the market phase. Now, this is where the game is really unique from any other deck builder out there, and actually kind of unique from almost all market games that are out there. And this is really going to be what tells you whether or not this is a game for you. So each player will have 3 tokens, one for each card in the market. The tokens are all double-sided with the back being identical on each one of them. The so again, they get played out face down during the market, so you don't know what other players are doing. Now, while that information is hidden, table talk is highly encouraged. You can absolutely say what you're doing towards each card in the market, and you can also absolutely lie about what you're doing towards each card in the market. It's all about making that market work out to your advantage. And it's kind of got either you're really trying to manipulate people with table talk, or you're kind of getting the feel of like in The Princess Bride, the Sicilian scene, I know
Yeah.
that you know that I know that you know,
Yeah.
kind of thing. So where you're just trying to get in their head to figure out exactly how to optimize it. Now, those three tokens that you place out, one of them that you'll always have is willing to sell a card in the market. And that's going to be one of the ones with the number. So that's also setting the price at the same time. Then you'll typically have two that would let you buy a card from the market if there is a buyer, or if it's being sold by another player. And then the third one that you can get by playing certain cards and will swap out buying tokens will try to steal the card out of the market. So you've got this really big like interaction between how all those tokens work out and trying to make sure that you're the one getting victory points for that card being sold to other players because the currency they pay you with are victory points at the end of the game.
Mhm.
You're also trying to make it so people tend to overpay for cards that are more powerful or kind of like mid power. But then you might also try to make it so you can use selling a card for a very low price to like form alliances and things like that. Um, so all the interactions, you have to read through the rule book to see exactly what each one of them does. But each player places their tokens face down, flip them over face up. You're able to resolve the market. It actually moves much quicker and much easier to understand once you just go through the round just once. Um, then afterwards, people reclaim their tokens and you move on to the night phase. During the night phase, you just play out the rest of the cards that you have in your hand.
Hmm.
And they'll do things like, well, the main thing they're doing at that point is generating attack. And when you attack, you just attack it into your opponent's base. If you end up dealing certain amounts of damage, you get to take treasures from them. If you completely finish off their health, you get to take their throne, which is worth a whole bunch of victory points, but they're still in the game. They could still very easily win the game. So it's kind of got this kid-like battle royale. So it's not a kids don't stop playing when just because they took a heavy hit. They keep on playing, but yeah.
It sounds like there's like this almost balance, like that's the key decision making make is how much do I want to invest in the day phase,
Mhm.
but that's going to be at the cost to build up my deck, but at the same time, that's going to cost me attack abilities later on in the evening, right? So that's kind of that trade-off, I guess, as you're going through.
Yeah, that's a major part of the trade-off. A major part of the strategy is going to be balancing essentially economy versus rush strategies
Hmm.
with your decks. And because it's dual phase cards, your deck is more flexible than in a lot of deck builders. Um, and then the other thing is just winning through. If you can master that market, if you can read every single one of the players, like you can win without doing any combat in this game. You can
Interesting.
win by just being a master manipulator of that market.
What's I mean, other than the gameplay itself,
Mhm.
visually, it is. I mean, you've done a great job on the design of this from the aesthetics. Can you talk a little bit about the illustrator on this one? Give him some props because I mean, again,
Oh yeah,
the artwork is super awesome.
no, Ilya Selenikov, he's
Yeah.
the primary illustrator. We also have Vic Corbella,
Mm.
who might be a little bit more familiar name because he's done other board game stuff. But Ilya Selenikov, I found him because he does a web comic series called Drim,
Mm.
Drimm, which is about a teddy bear that goes through, and his child is grown, and he carries a giant like wooden cloud strife buster sword and wears a long pilot scarf and goes through and fights off all the darkness now that his grown child is like living her life, but still has all the anxiety that comes on with being in adulthood. So yeah, the work that he does on that, he's also he does a lot of D&D. He's done a series of cartoons that's like a Cartoon Network inspired D&D characters,
Yep.
which is pretty cool. He's done all sorts of just really great illustrations, but he's primarily a storyteller,
Yeah.
which is something that I've found. If you want a really good illustrator, look for one who focuses on story. Because otherwise everything starts to look kind of generic.
Yeah.
against itself. And once you got a big board game, you're going to have a lot of art assets. And if you got a lot of art assets and they're not telling a story between them, they do kind of all blend together. But if you've got a storyteller who's making those things, they really pop.
Well, I think it's cool is that, I mean, you got a game that's based on plushies battling it out, and you even have plushies as part of your campaign as well. So each of
Hmm.
these characters are in plushies, which is super awesome.
Yeah.
What's the next steps for you as a company? Like, this is now two major launches you've done
Hmm.
around the bear. Now this one, like, do you have other things on deck? Like, how have you kind of mapped out your
I
company and
do.
kind of where you're going?
So I had a couple designs that I was playing around with early this year. I've got a micro expansion for Outrun the Bear that should be available very soon. But a few weeks ago, I had another designer who I talked to at last Gen Con. He had pitched something, and I've received a few pitches. I have one pitch that I really want to sign, but I the development cost is going to be too much, and unless Button Kingdoms raises a bit more today than I think it's going to, it's probably not realistic. But I had another designer come to me, and he put all of the games that he was showing off at Gen Con in front of me. And there was one game that I just skipped right over very early on, because it was a tic-tac-toe dice game. And I'm like, I'm
Mm.
not going to be interested in a tic-tac-toe dice game. And then I'm like, all right, well, I'll go through and I'll watch all of the videos that he did for everything. And when I watched it, it's called Tic Tac Roll. Um, Tic Tac Toe has no right to be as good as this game is. And he's got all these rules for how to make variations between the matches. And the first question I asked him, well, because when he did the video, like I could very clearly see the player interaction that comes in with it,
Yeah.
and that you don't have a deadlock that you have with tic tac toe. And I'm like, oh man, that's really interesting, and it's so approachable. Really kind of falls into something mass market, and that'll be a little ways off in development. But the first thing that I saw right there was a potential um, for a spin-off where you had asymmetric character abilities. And immediately Tic Tac Attack was born.
Hmm.
So I'm actually co-designing with him. I'm taking care of a lot of the character creation and character abilities. Tic Tac Attack is a strategic dice placement game, where you are battling it out with fantasy characters, just trying to knock out your opponents. Be one last one standing, battle royale style. It's 2+ players, so it's expandable with more characters. And we are working fast on that. In fact, our internal goal is actually to have that out by PAX Unplugged
Oh, wow.
this year.
That is
So yeah,
aggressive.
but after I saw it, I was just like, I could not get it out of my head. I personally did like 8 hours of playtesting, just by myself, and creating characters like that day. Um, I couldn't stop. And then I went and got a friend. We ended up playing together for 4 hours, and we're just like, man, this is really interesting how this all works out. And then at Gen Con with the team, like every single night, we were playing multiple matches, and it's beautiful. I was able to get some help in programming it, so I've got a little web app that I've been working on it with in order to get the balance of characters to make everything work even faster. But I am super excited
Oh,
to
it's
be working
awesome.
on a project that's not a board game that I've designed. Yeah. So,
Yeah, the
yep.
natural progression. For
Yep.
those who want to check out Button Kingdoms, I am going to put a
Mhm.
link in the show notes. I know that the funding is ended, but I know you have late pledges available, so I am going to encourage people to check out this page. I mean, the visually is just awesome. Just check it out. It looks great. And again, I just want to congratulate you on all the success you had on this. I'm sure the number is going to keep climbing as you get into late pledges. And Sam, it's been a real pleasure meeting you, my friend.
Thanks, James. It's been a ton of fun.
All right, buddy, you take care. Cheers. This has been an episode of the Board Game Binge podcast, hosted by James Staley Produced by James Staley and Mike Bruner, with original music by Nick Smith. If you would like to watch these interviews live, simply subscribe to our YouTube channel, Board Game Binge, and you'll get access to live interviews, giveaways, and interesting board game content from across the industry. I can't wait for you to join us. See you next time.